That's why I go for that rock and roll music. Any old way you choose it.
This is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl. I'll be spinning some rockin' 50s records every week here on my channel, as well as sharing some cool Coca-Cola collectibles and other neat vintage finds. Stay tuned. Hey guys, this is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, back with another great video for you today. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what's spinning, and this is going to be a weekly segment here on my channel. You can tune in and see what I'm listening to on my record player at home. And I hope that you guys will drop a line in the comments and let me know what you're listening to so I can get some new music recommendations. Hopefully this will be a great community where we can share music back and forth and really get to know what other people listen to. So I think that's going to be fun, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. So you probably hear my dog barking, and that's Louise saying hello to all of you. She sends her love and hope you all are doing well this week. So I thought that I'd start off by just talking a little bit about why I got into vintage music. I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering that. Most people my own age probably don't listen to the kind of music that I do. And I know a lot of people kind of give me strange looks sometimes when I go into a record store and I ask for the Regents or the Platters or other bands like that. Well, I got started pretty early when I was a young kid. My dad would take us on car rides back and forth all the time growing up, and we listened to a lot of music, and it wasn't just the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Of course, that's what I really grew up with in my childhood, but my dad would play great music that he listened to and loved as an adult. So we listened to a lot of Jimmy Buffett, a lot of Boston, some very, very good early country music, Don Williams, just great stuff. And that really was what I enjoyed listening to growing up, more than I enjoyed the music that was playing at the time that I was, in middle school, high school. I really honestly never cared for that type of music. I'm not poo-pooing on it. If you guys like it, that is totally fine. That's why there's so many different genres of music. You can really get into what you like. But I do remember specifically the moment when I first heard 50s music and sort of fell in love with it. And one of the times we were on a trip with my grandparents, my dad's parents, BB and Papa as we call them, and we were in the car driving to Blacksburg, Virginia, where my dad lived at the time, and we were listening to the radio, which was very common in the car, and I think that we had listened to some music for a while, and then it was my grandparents' turn to put on something that they liked. And they had Sirius XM, and they put on 50s on 5. And I remember driving along, and just even at about, I think I was probably 10 or 11 at the time, hearing that music and thinking, wow, there is something really cool about that sound. And I didn't really know exactly, the artists or what era or anything like that. I just knew that I liked it. And as I got older, I would start to hear more of that music in movies. I was watching Animal House when I was much older, and Shout came on, and I remember just falling in love with that song and wanting to know who sung it, where it came from, and that really continued to fuel my love for vintage music. And of course, I now have a Sirius XM subscription, and I listen to 50s on 5 all the time. And that has even enabled me to delve farther into the vintage doo-wop genre of music, because they constantly play new artists that I'm not familiar with, and I'm able to get more records and just build my collection with fun things. So I really love music, and that is sort of my history with music. So let's go ahead and jump into the albums. Now these are 5 albums that I've listened to this week, and every week you can stay tuned and check back in to see what 5 albums I've been spinning on my record player. So I've got some really fun choices for you today, and I hope you guys enjoy these. Now the first record is one I've showed before, but it's such a classic I have to show it again. And this is Barbara Ann by the Regents, and I just adore this album. I love Barbara Ann. It's such a great song. Now, this is not an original pressing, and I've talked about that before, and it is a little bit hard to get those. Sometimes they come at higher prices, and I'm just not willing to spend $100 on one album. For that $100, I can maybe get 15 albums that I enjoy listening to, and I feel like that's a little bit of a better investment, in my opinion. But I try to listen to these in the record store to make sure they sound okay, because sometimes the repressings can be funky, but a lot of them from the older time period can and cannot be good. So again, I would just tell you, listen to it, check it. If it's okay, then you're good to go. And this one was just fine. So some of my favorite songs on this are Barbara Ann, Sunday Kinda Love, A Fool in Love, Run Around, and Laura. But it has a lot of great hits on this album. And if you don't know the Regents, look up Barbara Ann. That's probably their most famous song. And just really fun, classic 50s sound. So you do want to check them out on YouTube if you haven't heard them before. And maybe you'll fall in love with them and you'll pick up this album. The next album is a collection of Buddy Holly songs, and we all know Buddy Holly. He's so famous, and tragically did pass away in that airplane crash. And then there was a song written, Bye Bye Miss American Pie, for Buddy Holly, stating that the day the music died was the day that he passed away, because he was such a good musician and people did really love his music. He was sort of one of the early rock and roll stars to get rock and roll off the ground. He learned from Elvis Presley. He really admired Elvis, and that kind of fueled him to get into the whole rock and roll thing. And he would play a lot of radio gigs, and they were expecting him to play just sort of that simple, down-to-earth country music, and then he'd go into his rock and roll songs, and they'd actually have to cut him off the air because back then that was considered very risque. So this is a fun album to have. Now, it is a collection, and Buddy Holly's hard to get original pressings because he lived such a short life as far as his music career goes, since sadly he did pass away. So finding his albums are hard. I do have one original pressing. It's Buddy Holly Showcase. That is the most I've ever spent on a record. It was $50. So I usually will not spend any more than $30, but that was an exception because it was Buddy Holly. But this record is great. It is Buddy Holly Rock and Roll Collection, and it has some great songs. Now, I'm not going to read them all because there's a lot, but you can see there the songs. I'll just tell you my favorites. I really like Rave On, Oh Boy, Fade Away, Words of Love, Maybe Baby, That Will Be the Day, Peggy Sue, and Crying, Hopin', Waitin'. Now, I want to kind of talk about something fun on this album, and you'll see this as a theme with other vintage music artists, is that a lot of them would come out with one hit song and then they do a follow-up or sort of a sequel to that song. So on this album here, there's Peggy Sue, which is arguably one of Buddy Holly's most famous songs. And then there was a follow-up to that, and it's Peggy Sue Got Married. So if you want to know more about Peggy Sue, you ought to hear Peggy Sue Got Married. So I think that's kind of funny, and I really enjoy that song too. So this is Buddy Holly. Oh, and it is a double gatefold. So the next album I'm going to share with you is The Del Vikings. And I was listening to a movie on Netflix, or rather watching, and it was a Netflix original movie. I can't remember the name of it, but it's one of the more recent ones, and it's those, you know, rom-com movies. And at the end, they had Come Go With Me by the Del Vikings, and I got so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, a 50s song is in a modern movie. How cool is that? But this is the Del Vikings, Come Go With Me, and this album is really great. Now, I got this online, and I had to get it from the Netherlands because they don't have any copies from the US online that I could find, so I was really excited to get this. I did have to pay a little bit more in shipping, but I love the Del Vikings so much that it was really worth it. I am starting to wear this album out. But my favorite songs on this are Come Go With Me, What Made Maggie Run, Down in Bermuda, Girl, 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 and Whispering Bells. So lots of great music on this album here. The next album is by a band called The Platters, and I'm sure you guys all have heard of them. They're pretty famous. And this album is Life is Just a Bowl of Cherries. And my favorite songs on this album here would probably be Jeannie, I Dream of Lilac Time, Life is Just a Bowl Full of Cherries, and Trees. So this is a really fun album. The Platters just have that really classic vintage sound, and I love doo-wop music, so I really love this album. And the last album I'm going to be sharing with you today is by a group called the Four Preps, and they are a doo-wop group. They're that great, real tight harmony that I really like, and it's just so nice to sit on the couch, put this on, close your eyes, and just let the world melt away. This is just a fantastic album. And my favorite songs on this is Again, I Cried a Million Tears, Fools Will Be Fools, and Moonstruck in Madrid. Really great album. Look at that artwork or graphic on the back of this. Isn't that fun? And this is an original pressing, by the way. So was the Platters album. Now the Del Vikings album wasn't, but again, I can't find an original without it being like $200. So that's okay. I really got a good deal, and I am enjoying that album. So I hope you guys enjoyed what's spinning on my record player. I hope that you guys will leave me a comment down below and share what you're listening to this week, and I can't wait to catch up with you in a future video. So for now, stay in, stay safe, and binge YouTube.
Just let me hear some of that rock and roll music.